Okay, everyone, we should be live. The setup looks weird. Okay. No worries. I forgot to actually put it in the Discord. Bear with me, guys. Everyone. Let me put PMQs on so there's some noise. It's not going to start for 2 minutes. Sweet. What do you guys think of Boris Johnson's last PMQs? It's his last showing really as PM. So that's going to be quite fun. But yeah, I'm happy he's gone. I just don't know who they're going to get to actually replace him. I know what the issue is. I haven't got my... That's better. That's so much better. But yeah, the audio should be coming through okay. Everything should be going through okay. We're just waiting for this thing to really kick off. Let's see if I can find it. PMQs. We'll go for this one.
As I've said in response to an earlier question, the net zero strategy is not what has been quashed, and obviously the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy will look to respond on the...
It's about the target, so you know the smaller targets that we have, we're not meeting those.
...judgment that's been made.
Harriet Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I commend my right honourable friend for his amazing service as COP26 President?
He
And
hasn't
can I
really done
ask
that
him
great.
to make it his objective to ban the sale of Chinese lanterns across the UK? Across our tinder dry land, they are simply acting as unguided flamethrowers.
Hello? Is that bad?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable friend for her kind comments. With regard to these lanterns, I will make sure this is raised with the appropriate department domestically.
Is that an issue? Is that much of an issue?
The President showed great leadership at COP26, which we all respect him for. Can I ask him to do the same again and cut back on a project that's polluting both his and my constituents' lungs? Could he please revisit the biggest emitter of CO2 in the whole of Europe and think again about a new runway at Heathrow?
Mr. Speaker, my role, as you know, as COP President, is to corral the international community. She's raised the question, and I'm sure the Department of Transport will respond.
Glenn Saxby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that the dramatic increase in fuel prices presents opportunities for decarbonising fleets of vehicles in key sectors such as social care?
Decarbonising them.
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend raises a very important point, and of course decarbonising the transport sector along with other sectors should be a key priority going forward.
Barry Gardner.
The recent carbon tracker report set out for each financial sector across the world its exposure to stranded assets, over 1 trillion in total. Will the COP President be engaging with each of the heads of the financial sectors like the Securities and Exchange Commission, the London Stock Exchange, to ensure that they cope with that problem?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the private sector is actually very focused on the issue of the move to net zero, and as you will know, in Glasgow...
They're waiting for the government to push it. I think that's what they want. They want the government to force the issue. I think a lot of them are ready to push towards net zero. It's just they're waiting for the government to force their hand.
$130 trillion of assets signed up to net zero. Anyone investing in assets which might end up being stranded has to be very clear about the financial decisions they're taking.
Jerome Mayo.
Does my right honourable friend agree that establishing a price for carbon would give the free market the signal it needs to invest in low-carbon alternatives across the economy? Does he also agree that a carbon border adjustment mechanism is a necessary first step to achieve that?
Mr. Speaker, I know my honourable friend has raised this issue before, and of course tackling carbon leakage is a vital issue.
Boris Johnson's probably just walked in.
As my honourable friend is aware, Her Majesty's Treasury will be launching a consultation later this year and setting out a range of carbon leakage mitigation options, which includes looking at a carbon border adjustment mechanism.
Barry Sherman.
Am I allowed to say to the Minister that many of us on these benches think he's done a darn good job? But will he...
Has he done that good a job, really?
Every effort, if he survives the present wranglings in the Conservative Party, will he come back and grassroot what we're trying to do about climate change in every community and every town and city and community? Let's have 500 sustainable towns and cities in this country. Does he agree with that?
Mr. Speaker, in the words of Gloria Gaynor, I will survive. But can I just say, Mr. Speaker, that the point he raises is that tackling the climate emergency is an issue for all of us, for governments, for civil society and individuals, and we all need to play our part.
Before we come to Prime Minister's questions, I'd like to point out the British Sign Language interpretation of proceedings is available to watch on the Parliament Live TV.
I hope the person on sign language just says
I'd
slice.
also like to welcome Lord Mackay, who is retiring today after many distinguished years as Lord Chancellor. Before I call Kim Leadbeater to ask the first question, it's only fitting... Before I call Kim Leadbeater to ask her first question, it's only fitting to note this is likely to be the final time the Right Honourable Member for Uxbridge addresses the House as Prime Minister.
Yeah.
I would like to wish him and his family all the best for the future.
I wouldn't.
Can I say, we've been through many dark times within this House, and none more so than through the pandemic, and always will be remembered for what this House did and the way that you conducted those duties during those dark times.
Yeah, he did not do a good job, let's be honest now.
I understand that members will have differing views about the Prime Minister's performance and legacy, and those views will be sincerely and passionately held, but I remind members that our constituents and others around the world watch these proceedings. Let us conduct them in a respectful manner, focusing on issues and policies rather than personalities.
He's not dead.
I take this opportunity to remind members of the words of Erskine May. I expect to see that reflected...
It's the 40th anniversary of the bombings in Hyde Park and Regent Park.
He still can't fix his tie.
And tomorrow sees the 50th anniversary of Bloody Friday. Such terror by the provisional IRA was barbaric and shameful, bringing untold grief to countless families. And our thoughts are with all those who lost loved ones during the Troubles. We as a government remain determined to help build a better shared future for all the people of Northern Ireland.
Trying to bring back the Troubles.
Mr. Speaker, I've spoken to the chair of the National Fire Council last night and this morning about the heroic work of firefighters in recent days.
And let's not forget, he's a person as the London Mayor cut the fire services in London. How's that looking now, pal? How's it looking now?
I know the whole House will want to thank them and all our frontline services who've been working hard to keep us safe. My right honourable friend, the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, will be making an oral statement later.
Who?
Mr. Speaker, I know colleagues will wish to join me in wishing England's Lionesses well in their quarter-final match against Spain in Brighton this evening. And I know that the House will want to congratulate Jake Whiteman, who produced a stunning run to take gold in the 1,500 metres at the World Championships in Oregon. Mr. Speaker, as you rightly say, last week I told the House that this was possibly, that last week was possibly my last PMQs. This week, Mr. Speaker, probably, certainly will be my last PMQs from this dispatch box.
That was an awkward laugh.
Or any other dispatch box. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others, and in addition to my duties in this House, I will have further such meetings later today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Summer recess gives all parliamentarians an opportunity to reflect on our inability to uphold the 7 principles of public life. Selflessness, openness, objectivity, honesty, integrity, accountability and leadership. These are fine principles, but public trust in politicians is at an all-time low. Yep. Will the Prime Minister be using the next few weeks to personally consider why this could be? And as the unedifying fight for his job continues, if those who are vying to replace him were to draw on his wise counsel, if those who are vying to replace him would draw on his wise counsel, and why wouldn't they, what advice would he give to ensure the people we serve receive far
Surely the Speaker's meant to step in at this point. Like, she's shouting like this is ridiculous.
better than they have from this government?
Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, no? Cowardly. Cowardly as always.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm afraid I didn't quite catch the last bit of the honourable lady's question, but I will be using the next few weeks to do what I think the people of this country would expect, and that is drive
Party at checkers.
forward the
Party
agenda on which we were elected in 2019, and of which I think the Labour Party particularly fear the Conservative Party, and that is the agenda. And that is the agenda of uniting and levelling up, and making sure that we invest in places that for decades were betrayed by Labour and left behind. And that is what the Conservatives are going to do, and that's why we're going to win again.
Luke Evans.
Russia's war in Ukraine continues. Now, Turkey have withdrawn its opposition to Sweden and Finland joining NATO. So what assessment does my right honourable friend make about the short and long-term securities of Europe now this has happened?
I think it means that Russia won't invade anyone else. I don't think they were intending to. They're struggling in Ukraine as is. Could you imagine if they tried to attack another country? But what it means is if Russia do attack Finland and or Sweden, it means NATO have to get involved at that point. That's the way I see it.
Prime Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for that excellent question. The accession of both countries, I think, will be good for them. I think it will encourage, it will make all our allies safer, and I think it will make the whole of the Euro-Atlantic security area stronger, Mr. Speaker. And I'm proud of the role that the UK has played in that accession.
We now come to the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Let's go.
Can I start by saying to the Prime Minister that I do know that the relationship between a Prime Minister and Leader of the Opposition is never easy, and this one's proved no exception to the rule. But I would like to take this opportunity to wish him, his wife and his family the best for the future.
Boo. Boo.
Can I also put on record our gratitude to the fire and rescue services for all their courageous work yesterday in extreme temperatures.
Should have started with that, mate.
All our thoughts are with those affected by the fires, particularly those that have lost their homes. I join the Prime Minister in his comments about the bombings in Hyde Park and the IRA bombings. I also join him in his comments about the Lionesses. The coverage starts at 7:30 tonight on BBC One, and I'm sure the whole country will be roaring them on. And for anyone who doesn't fancy football, EastEnders is on. So if you'd rather watch outrageous characters taking lumps out of it themselves, you've got a choice. Albert Square or the Tory leadership debates on catch-up.
Not bad. Not bad. Not bad. Okay. Okay. He was going a bit off there, but yeah. Okay. Not bad. Not bad.
On that topic, Mr. Speaker,
he dragged it back. He dragged it back. It was long-winded.
Does the Prime Minister think that those vying to replace him decided to pull out of the Sky debate last night?
I was going to say it's up to them, isn't it? Whoops.
Of the exit from any one of Mr. Speaker, I'm not following this thing particularly closely, but my impression is that there's been quite a lot of debate already, and I think the public are having an ample opportunity to view the talent.
That's a load of rubbish, and he knows it.
Mr. Speaker, that any one of which.
Oh, did you see the eye roll?
Mr. Speaker.
Did you see? Watch this lady here, the eye roll.
Any one of which, as I say before, like some household detergent, would wipe the floor. I mean, this today.
What? How was he stuttering so much? With a. What's this, man?
Today is happening.
Churchill wouldn't stutter like that.
Just about the anniversary of the exit from lockdown last year. And do you remember what he said? He said, yeah, I'm going to remind him, he said it was reckless. It was because we were able to take that decision, Mr. Speaker, supported by every single one of those Conservative candidates, opposed by him, that we had the fastest economic growth in the G7. We're now able to help families up and down.
The reason why we had the fastest growth in the G7 wasn't just us coming lockdown, is because of this government's handling of lockdown was so bad that we had one of the lowest, our GDP fell the most, I think, out of any of the G7 countries.
The country, if we'd listened to him, it wouldn't have been possible, Mr. Speaker, and I don't think they'll be listening to him either.
Well, I am impressed he managed to get through that with a straight face, actually.
Oh, nice.
I think the truth is this. They organised the TV debates because they thought it would be a great chance for the public to hear from the candidates firsthand.
Yeah. And then separate themselves from Johnson.
Then disaster struck because the public actually heard from the candidates firsthand.
Not bad.
But I am interested in what he makes of the battle for his job. So let me start with a simple one. Does the Prime Minister agree with his former Chancellor that plans put forward by the other candidates are, in his words, I've got them here, nothing more than the fantasy economics of unfunded spending promises?
I don't think doing this. I think it's kind of pointless. I know why he's doing this. They're going to put this in attack ads and stuff, but Johnson's never going to answer these properly.
Well, Mr. Speaker, they know all about fantasy economics because they've already committed to £94 billion of extra tax and spending, Mr. Speaker, which every.
I mean, he's walked into that one, hasn't he?
Household in this country would have to pay for, to the tune of about £2,100. It's thanks to the former Chancellor's management of the economy, thanks to this government's management of the economy, we had growth in May of 0.5%. We have more people in paid employment than at any time in the history.
We know, you've told us.
Of this country, Mr. Speaker. And I'm proud to be leaving office right now with unemployment at or near a 50-year low, Mr. Speaker.
Unemployment's not the only metric of a successful economy. In fact, it's not a massive metric at all, really.
When they left office, it was at 8%. That's the difference between them and us.
Mr. Speaker, every Labour pledge made under my leadership is fully costed. Those vying to protect him, Mr. Speaker, those vying to replace him have racked up £330 billion of unfunded spending commitments. But I do note that the Prime Minister didn't agree with his former Chancellor.
Okay.
So what about his Foreign Secretary? She was withering.
His current Foreign Secretary even.
About the government's economic record. She said, again, her words, here they are, if Rishi has got this great plan for growth...
Oh, what a quote. I love it so much.
Why haven't we seen it in the last 2.5 years at the Treasury? That's a fair question, is it, Prime Minister?
Actually, Mr. Speaker, I think everybody would agree that what you saw in the last 2.5 years was because of the pandemic, the biggest fall in output for 300.
You said we came out of the pandemic last year, so surely we should have seen the roots of Rishi's plan, no?
Years, which this government dealt with and coped with magnificently. By distributing vaccines faster than any other European government, faster than any other major economy, which would not have been possible if we had listened.
Is Israel not a major economy because their vaccine rollout was way better than ours?
To him. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, we have the fiscal firepower that is necessary to help families up and down the country, making tax cuts for virtually everybody paying national insurance contributions. The difference between Labour and the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker, there's a crucial philosophical difference. Under Labour, families on low incomes get most of their income from benefits. Under us, they get most of it from earnings. Because we believe in jobs, jobs, jobs. That's the difference, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, inflation is up again this morning, and millions are struggling with the cost of living crisis. And he's decided to come down from his gold wallpapered bunker for one last time.
That was a good burn. Okay.
To tell us that everything's fine. I am going to miss the delusion. But his Foreign Secretary didn't stop there, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, no.
She also said that the former Chancellor's 15 tax rises are leading the country into recession. And the member for Portsmouth North was even more scathing. She said, in her words, our public services are in a desperate state.
I think she's talking about Kemi, I think.
We can't continue with what we've been doing because it clearly isn't working. Has the Prime Minister told her who's been running our public services for the last 12 years?
You know, that's why the Tory leadership debates have been so damaging. It's because of stuff like this, where they were just going after each other and admitting that, you know, the Tory party hasn't done their jobs properly. And what that means is you've got to ask yourselves, who's been in charge for so long then? If they were only in charge since 2019, they could probably get away with a lot of the lines they use. But, you know, at the end of the day, they've been in charge for 12 years now. 12 years, 3 different prime ministers, going on to 4. That's madness. That's absolute madness.
Mr. Speaker, this is absolute. And again, he's doing this completely satirical. This is the government. This is the government that is investing 600.
He doesn't know what to say.
This is the government. This is Speaker. This is absolute. And again, he's doing this completely.
Look, he doesn't know what to say here, and then he flips. Can you see it? Like in his brain, he's like, I need to wing this, because that's all he does, and he doesn't know what to say, so he kind of flips. Look.
Completely satirical. This is the government.
First thing that pops into his brain. This is the government.
This is the government that is investing £650 billion in infrastructure, in skills, in technology. He talks about public services. What really matters to people in this country right now is getting their appointments, getting their operations,
and they're not able
fixing
to.
the COVID backlogs. That's what we're doing.
The backlog was massive, even even before the pandemic.
Fixing the ambulances, that's what he should be talking about, Mr. Speaker, and that's why we voted through, that's why we passed the £39 billion health and care levy, Mr. Speaker, which they opposed. Every time something needs to be done, Mr. Speaker, they try to oppose it. He's just a great pointless human bollard, Mr. Speaker, that's what he is.
The Speaker, let's not do personal attacks. Johnson, he's a great human bollard.
Mr. Speaker, if only it was satirical. It's what the future candidates think of his... Mr. Speaker.
We want to get through PMQs because there's quite a few of you wanting to catch my eye. It would be more helpful if we get through in order to do that. Keir Starmer.
I appreciate they may not want to hear what their future leader thinks of their record in government, but I think the country needs to know. If only it were satirical, Prime Minister. It's what the candidates think of the record.
Yeah.
But among the mudslinging, there was one very important point, because the member for Saffron Walden claimed that she warned the former Chancellor that he was handing taxpayer money directly to fraudsters in COVID loans.
I don't know who he's referring to. He's referring to Sunak, but I don't know who the other person is.
Says he dismissed her worries and that as a result he cost the taxpayer £17 billion. Does the Prime Minister think that she's telling the truth?
They need to start putting this stuff on Twitter, because I was not aware of this. I was not aware. Someone, I'm assuming a junior minister in the Treasury, told them that they were throwing away £17 billion to fraudsters, potentially.
Prime Minister.
Okay, well, this is one of the last blasts from Captain Hindsight, Mr. Speaker, because at least
Hindsight to not waste £17 billion. I mean, they need to get that one into the public eye. That one's a doozy. That one, you think, 32 billion on test and trace, right? 17 billion on going to fraudsters. That's almost £50 billion. Almost £50 billion, isn't it? Yeah, try to do the math in my head there. Almost 50 billion, madness.
At least to me, because they were the party. I remember they were the party who were so desperate for us to be hiring their friends with PPE. They wanted a football agent to supply and a theatrical costumier to supply PPE. Do you remember, Mr. Speaker? We had to get that stuff at
You got a jeweller, you know, Saigon, I think his name was. I can't remember. He had like a Street Fighter villain name. So yeah, the projection is strong here.
Record speed. We produced £408 billion worth of support for families and for businesses up and down the country, Mr. Speaker, and the only reason we were able to do it at such speed is because we managed the economy in a sensible and moderate way. And
hang on, you were able to buy PPE because you managed the economy in a sensible way. That doesn't even make sense. And let's not forget here the fact that you know, I think it was found unlawful. The VIP lane, I think, was found unlawful in the Supreme Court. So what's he talking about?
Labour, every time they've left office, it's with unemployment higher, they're economically illiterate, Mr. Speaker, and they would wreck the economy.
I think you'll find that you wrecked the economy, big boy, because it's not looking too hot right now, is it?
I think the message coming out of this leadership contest is pretty clear. They got us into this mess, and they've no idea how to get us out of it. The Foreign Secretary says we can't go on with our current economic policy. The member for Portsmouth North bemoaned the fact that what we've been doing has not been good enough. And the member for Saffron Walden probably puts it best when she simply asked, why should the public trust us? We haven't exactly covered ourselves in glory. Their words.
I think that's the Kemi lady. I can't remember her name, and I don't really care much for her. What do you call it? They did. I think Labour released a really vicious attack ad that I'll cover at some point soon about it.
Their future leaders' words. They've trashed every part of their record in government, from dental care and ambulance response times to the highest taxes in 70 years. What message does it send when the candidates to be Prime Minister can't find a single decent thing to say about him, about each other, or their record in government?
I would have brought up the honesty thing as well when they asked, is Boris Johnson honest? And someone said sometimes.
Mr. Speaker, what does it say? What does it say about him that no one can name a single policy of the after 3 years of the Labour opposition apart from putting up taxes? He's one of those pointless plastic bollards you find around a deserted roadworks on a motorway, Mr. Speaker.
Why are there plastic bollards on a deserted road? What does that even mean?
Brexit done, he voted against it 48 times. We got this country fast out of COVID in spite of everything he would have kept, and when he would have kept us in lockdown.
He's speaking so fast he could give Eminem and Rap God a run for his money.
We're fixing social care, Mr. Speaker.
You broke social care. You broke social care. Your party did.
They have no plan and no ideas of their own. And we're now bringing forward measures in the face of strikes to outlaw wildcat strikes, Mr. Speaker. I can tell you to outlaw
wildcat strikes.
Wildcat strikes. I can tell you why. I can tell you why he does that funny wooden flapping gesture. I'll tell you why he does that funny wooden flapping gesture. Because, Mr. Speaker, he's got the union barons pulling his strings from beneath him. That's the truth. £100 million, Mr. Speaker. We've restored our democracy and our independence. We've got this country through COVID, and I'm proud to say that whether it comes to tackling climate change or sticking up for Ukraine, we have led the world on the international...
On climate change, we were taking the Supreme Court over it. We lost. We lost, son. Like, let's be honest now.
Stage. And I want to thank my friends and colleagues on these benches for everything that they have done.
We're gonna go until about 1:45, maybe, if we get some good questions, and then I'll call it because I've got other videos I've got to do because I didn't do enough over the weekend. I'll be honest, or Monday, Tuesday, because it was like searing hot.
Mr. Speaker, in September it will be 25 years since the 25th anniversary of the referendum on devolution in both Scotland and Wales.
Okay.
1 in 20 people in England and the NHS have been waiting for more than a year. In Wales, that's 1 in 5. And school leaders in Wales, 75% of whom say that they don't have enough capital to maintain their existing buildings, regardless of building any others.
I don't know why his eyes are really weird. Why is the NHS in Wales so bad? Does anyone know, like, in the comments, or is it something I have to do research on? Because they've been mentioning it over the years. Also, like, the education in Scotland as well. It's something they keep mentioning.
In his final opportunity at the dispatch box, will the Prime Minister and the Minister for the Union agree that in terms of Wales at least, devolution has been a disaster?
Prime Minister...
If it's been so bad, why do they keep voting for the Labour Party? Surely they should vote for someone else. if they don't think Mark Drakeford or the Labour Party have done a good job.
I want devolution to work, but I think, and I've had some good conversations with Mark Drakeford, but the devolved authorities, particularly Labour in Wales, need to do their job properly.
Now comes to the leader of the SNP, Ian Blackford.
Yes, Ian, let's go.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I join you in wishing all the best in his impending retirement to James Mackay and Beth. He's been a friend to many of us right throughout this House, and we congratulate him for
Is he up
his
there
service.
in the
Can I
stands?
also join the Prime Minister in congratulating Jake Whiteman for his success overnight in winning the 1500 metres at the World Champions. What a fantastic achievement. Mr. Speaker, this week has seen historic records set across the United Kingdom. But let's look at the Prime Minister's record-breaking efforts in office. His Tory Brexit slashed £31 billion from the economy. The biggest...
That's based on economic modelling, based on like a doppelganger economy. It's a bit confusing unless someone like shows you kind of the methodology. I've gone through it before.
fall in living standards since the 1970s.
That one's not hard to figure out.
People's pay in real terms falling at the fastest rate on record.
You know, inflation's at, I think, around the 11% mark. No one's got a real pay rise, so it tells you that. Well, no one's got a real pay rise.
With the worst economic growth forecast in the G20 outside Russia, and the highest inflation in 40 years. Personally, I'd like to thank the Prime Minister in his capacity as Minister of the Union for driving support for independence.
Yeah, I could see that one. Yeah, that one. He set that one up.
New heights. Mr. Speaker, Westminster is holding Scotland back. The economy is failing and this Prime Minister has driven us to the brink of a recession. Isn't it the case that the Prime Minister's legacy of catastrophic mismanagement has paved the way for the end of the Union?
Decent questions. I reckon he's going to mention the education thing about the SNP. Let's watch.
Mr. Speaker, that's not what I observed. And he talks about records. I'll point to the fastest vaccine rollout in Europe, lowest unemployment, as I said, for at or near 50 years, the lowest youth unemployment, fastest growth in the G7.
Dude needs to breathe. He's running out of breath, it feels like.
Last year, in spite of everything. As for the Scottish nationalist record, just look at...
Nationalists. It's not the Scottish Nationalist Party, though, are they?
Look at where they are. I'm afraid to say Scottish school standards are not what
thought so. Can anyone in the comments, do you know much about like Scottish education, what's going on?
They should be because of the failure of the SNP. They're failing people who are tragically addicted to drugs, Mr. Speaker.
I think is Valium. I think is the drug. It's like a sleep medication. I think it looks pretty nasty. I can't lie. I think it's Valium. I watched a documentary on it a few years ago. Britain's drug rap. So what we had was, I can't remember the names now, but there was like we had a big problem with synthetic drugs in the UK, where you would buy synthetic weed, and it's so bad. It makes like your teeth fall out and stuff. It was grim. It was so grim.
In Scotland, and the people of Scotland are facing another £900 million in tax because of the mismanagement of the SNP.
I mean, the Prime Minister might believe that nonsense, but the people of Scotland don't, because they know the reality that our NHS is the best performing in the United Kingdom, and education standards under the SNP are moving in the right direction.
I mean, he says they're moving in the right direction, but were there problems in years gone by? I mean... I'm going to be kind to him, but that's something you'd hear Johnson say when things have gone wrong and they're moving slightly in the right direction. He goes, things are moving in the right direction, which is factually true, but doesn't really give you any context to what the problems are.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that's a good look to the people of Scotland, the disdain that the Tories show for our country. Mr. Speaker, I hope that the Prime Minister has time to reflect on his conduct in office with all his new spare time, and I genuinely hope that he finds some peace of mind.
He's going to write a book, let's be honest now.
The fact is that as well as a record breaker, the Prime Minister is a rule breaker.
Nice.
Illegally shutting down Parliament, partying through the pandemic, handing out PPE contracts to cronies, unilaterally changing the ministerial code. And let us not forget, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is still under investigation because he can't be trusted to tell the truth.
Yeah, the Privileges Committee are looking into him as well. I think he should mention the protocol here. I genuinely think he should mention the protocol.
Shameful, disgraceful and a complete waste of Scotland's time. This is how the people of Scotland will remember this Prime Minister. Isn't it the case that the Prime Minister and his government should have had its last day a long time ago?
Yeah, it should never have gotten past 2017. Let's be honest. It should never. If only that election could have been won by Labour, or at least Labour could have got a coalition. If only.
Quite simply, Downing Street is no place for a lawbreaker.
I mean, it's the perfect place for a lawbreaker, isn't it? You know, when has Britain actually adhered to international law? You know, one of the biggest colonisers of the world. Downing Street is the perfect place for a lawbreaker. Let's be honest now.
Well, look, Mr. Speaker, I think on the points, the personal abuse stuff, I think he's talking a load of tosh. But when he's
personal abuse, bro, you're the one who's calling him fat every other week.
When he's up, but when he's retired to his croft, which may be all too soon, Mr. Speaker, I hope that he will reflect on his long-running campaign to break up the greatest country in the world. And
we're not the greatest country in the world. By what metric? You know, the Scandinavian countries do better than us in most of the metrics in terms of like happiness and things like that. So it's definitely not us. We are definitely not the greatest country in the world. Let's be honest now.
People reflect on the pointlessness of what he is trying to do and think instead about the priorities of the people of Scotland, which I think are about all the issues that he thought were trivial, about their education, about crime, Mr. Speaker, and about the burden of taxation that they are unnecessarily placing on the people of Scotland.
Are taxes that much higher in Scotland?
A long time ago, when I trained as a pilot, I had the luxury of being able to fly around turbulent storms, but what I also had was the ability to rely on a team that kept my aircraft airworthy. As the Prime Minister prepares his new flight plans, could I suggest that he might reset his compass to true north and stops off in Dudley, where he will always be welcomed with open arms, with sincere affection.
Bro, just say we invite the Prime Minister to Dudley. Don't do all this random filler.
And where he will be able to
hey, look, it's Donald Jr.
Let's hope that
I'm skipping filler questions, guys.
There are more to come.
Sure, the whole House is looking forward to him completing.
There's the leader of the Lib Dems, in case anyone didn't know, and there's a plane going overhead, so apologies for that.
His book on Shakespeare.
Oh yeah, I remember.
We
Yeah,
wait to read...
he didn't he didn't. He didn't go to some of the Cobra meetings and stuff, allegedly because he was writing a book on Shakespeare because the book agency paid him, I think, a lot of money in advance. So that's pretty funny. I forgot about
what
that.
What he really thinks about tragic figures brought down by their vaulting ambition, or scheming politicians who conspire to bring down a tyrannical leader. The candidates, Mr. Speaker, now plotting to take his place, all profess that they will bring a fresh start, a clean break from his government. But does the Prime Minister not agree with me that a fresh start and a clean break would require a new mandate from the British people?
He's going for a new election. I don't think the Lib Dems actually have that many MPs. So yeah, this would suit them a lot.
And before they strut and fret their hour upon the stage, there should be a general election.
I agree with that. The problem the Lib Dems will face is those by-election seats that they won, they might not win them again. That's the only thing.
Mr. Speaker, I think that Polonius, that's who he is. What you need, more matter with less art, Mr. Speaker. The only thing you need to know, if there were to be a general election, of course, the Liberal Democrats would rightly get thrashed because that would be. That is the moment when the public actually look with horror at what Liberal Democrat policies really are, and all these rural voters would discover the massive green taxes that they would like to apply, and the only risk is that there could be some kind of crackpot coalition between those guys and the Lib Dems and the Scottish Nationalists to put that into effect. That
don't threaten us to the good time, Johnson.
Is what we must prevent.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituents feel very let down by the Mayor of London. He is consulting on cutting 18% of London's buses. The Met is in special measures. He's looking to sell Notting Hill Police Station.
Okay, is the Met under the Mayor of London, or is it under the Home Office? Because it feels like it's a mix between the two, and that's pretty stupid, to be honest.
To the highest bidder, and he is looking to push through a completely unwanted overdevelopment of South Kensington Tube Station. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that
Look how angry she is. Why is she so angry about this?
Londoners deserve way, way better?
I mean, you put up Zach Goldsmith and he lost because he tried, he said that he knew about Bollywood films, and then they asked him, like, what's your favourite one? And he didn't have an answer. So he had no actual idea of what to do, and then his best was trying to pander to Asian people, and in the end he had, like, he just couldn't do it. It's so embarrassing. I remember watching the interview at the time.
Mr. Speaker, London once had a mayor who cut crime by 25% and cut the murder rate by 30% and built twice as many affordable homes as the current incumbent. And what London needs is...
Wasn't he also the one who helped bankrupt the TfL?
Another Conservative mayor.
He also cut the amount of fire services as well.
Jamie Stone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Could I just add a personal note of thanks to Lord Mackay of Clashfern, who is retiring. He is a Highland gentleman, and he's been very, very helpful to me for a number of years, and I'm extremely grateful. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister knows that harnessing wind power, is crucial to the United Kingdom.
Guy looks like Joe Biden a bit in the back.
You're right. The Prime Minister also knows that the Highlands have faced great historic difficulties over the years. So I hope that the Prime Minister agrees with me that a green freeport in the Cromarty Firth is...
Bro, what the hell is a green freeport? The reason you build freeports is because they're lower tax and lower regulation. That's why you have freeports. Like, why would anyone build a green freeport? That makes no sense.
Vital to harnessing wind energy. It has the full support of the industry.
Oh my God, is this a Lib Dem person asking this as well?
And vital to the prosperity of that region.
What the hell?
I thank you very much. I can confirm that we're committed to funding two new green freeports in Scotland to the tune of £52 million. Wouldn't be possible, of course, if the SNP got their way and we returned to the EU.
Jay Barry.
That's not true at all, because in the EU they have freeports. It's David Cameron that started closing them down. I don't know. That's Gregory Campbell of the okay. Okay, that makes more sense.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I congratulate my friend on his
next
work
to
tackle regional inequality in this country through his levelling up agenda?
Bro, the levelling up scheme is a joke. Everyone knows it's a joke. It's ridiculous. I mean, these are the filler questions, which I get so annoyed at PMQs about.
And himself and his government, will he also urge all candidates in this leadership election and all colleagues in this House to further drive forward that levelling up agenda to tackle inequality wherever it is found within this United Kingdom?
They haven't levelled up the country, they've levelled it down. Things are worse now. Like, this obsession with levelling up is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
It's inequality of opportunity, and that's what levelling up addresses.
Inequality of opportunity, and yet the country still sucks. Getting jobs, outside of the major cities is really difficult. Getting decent jobs, like, come on, man.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very few people in the north of England believe that the levelling up agenda has achieved anything at all. Now, the Prime Minister has a few days left in office. Can he use this to drive through the Trans-Pennine rail system that we were promised would be finished in 2019 and will not be finished before 2030? It's a shambles, and he...
What? It was meant to be finished, a few years ago, and it's not going to be finished 2030. What the hell happened there? Also, the fact that he fired the Levelling Up Minister anyways. I don't even know who's in charge of Levelling Up.
Is responsible.
Michael Gove was sacked.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, this government's responsible for 3 new high-speed lines, including Northern Powerhouse Rail, which no previous government has done.
Caroline Notes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My right honourable friend rightly paid tribute to our hard-working firefighters dealing with the fires over the last few days in this unprecedented weather. Will my right honourable friend take action to make sure more fires can be prevented by getting rid of disposable barbecues and Chinese sky lanterns?
Someone already asked about sky lanterns, but disposable barbecues, again, that seems like a fire hazard. Are they that big a problem? Are they the real cause of it, or is it just the temperature that's helping to cause these issues?
The ones that flow.
Right, I thank my honourable friend very much for her suggestions. I think the key thing is for people to behave responsibly first with the use of these things. It's clearly insane to take a disposable barbecue onto dry grass.
Yes, that makes more sense now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Due to Scottish Government investment in affordable housing, the Scottish child payment and extended free school meals, Scotland has the lowest level of child poverty in the UK, in contrast to the North East, which has risen by 50% on the watch of this government. In contrast, the Prime Minister took over £1,000 from the poorest families, so much for levelling up, and those fighting to replace him have been falling over themselves to promise tax cuts to the wealthy. So if the UK is meant to be a voluntary union, does he not recognise that voters in Scotland have the right to a referendum so they can choose a fairer future?
We had a referendum in 2014. Sorry.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, we increased the living wage across the whole of the UK by £1,000. We made sure that people on universal credit got their tax bills cut by £1,000, and we've in the last couple of weeks we've cut national insurance contributions by an average of £330.
Didn't they raise national insurance in the first place, and then they just changed like the threshold amount?
And it was because of the union that we were able to support families up and down the country in Scotland with the furlough and other payments to the tune of £408 billion, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, can I thank...
People bury them on the beach. People bury disposable barbecues. That's so dumb, honestly.
Can I thank my right honourable friend for his commitment to Scotland and the entire United Kingdom over his years in Downing Street, and to him and my friend, the Secretary of State for Scotland, for improving and increasing the visibility and involvement of the UK government in Scotland over the past 3 years. And does my right honourable friend agree with me that whoever takes his job and whatever comes next, the United Kingdom will always be stronger together than it ever would be apart?
Mr. Speaker, brilliantly put. I couldn't put it better myself.
Kate Osmond.
Mr. Speaker, the Windrush Compensation Scheme was launched in April 2019. In the time since, we've seen this Prime Minister come and go. Meanwhile, just 1 in 4 applicants have received compensation so far, and at least 28 have sadly passed away without receiving compensation. Isn't it about time for the government to make the scheme independent of the Home Office and finally provide justice to the victims before it is too late?
Actually, Mr. Speaker,
some of these people are at risk of just dying of old age, I think. Some of them have done. They've been waiting forever for the Home Office support. The Windrush scandal, I think, started under Theresa May, which had been about a decade ago. I think just over a decade ago, so it's wild. Nothing's actually been done yet.
I think more people have got compensation. I renew my apologies to the Windrush generation for what they've suffered. But we have greatly increased the compensation available. We've paid out, I think, more than £51 million. We're working with voluntary groups to ensure that people get what they're entitled to. But I may say that Labour has never apologised for their own part in the Windrush scandal.
What did Labour do during the Windrush scandal? You know, what did Labour do? Can you tell us? No, you're going to sit down? Okay.
Speaker, can I thank my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, for all of the work he has done for Scunthorpe, but can I pay particular thanks to him for the work that he has done for steel? He has shown his understanding both of the challenges that steel faces and of its importance to this nation. He has...
Wasn't it because of him we faced extra tariffs from the American government on steel exports?
Kept every promise he has made to me on steel, and I want to thank him very much for his work on that. Does he agree with me that the future of steel is always safest under a Conservative government?
I mean, that's not true either, because Tata Steel was going to go down, and that was under you guys.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, and I thank her for everything that she has done to champion UK steel, a vital national industry.
Sir Hannah.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister has been the very embodiment of the excess and the vice that the Ministerial Code was designed to protect. And once trust is broken, it's very hard to rebuild. The trust of the Good Friday Agreement between the peoples and between the governments of these islands has been systematically destroyed over the last 6 years, and people across the island of Ireland, whether unionist or nationalist or neither have looked on in horror at the degradation of the rule of law, at the deterioration of Anglo-Irish relationships and at the bolstering of the far right. Many of us will work to try and restore those relationships and ensure the decent people of Britain and Ireland live entwined lives for many years to come. Can I ask the Prime Minister if he is capable of any self-reflection? Does he have any regrets of his legacy of damaging our fragile, shared society and all the people of Northern Ireland?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I completely disagree with that. The whole objective of the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill that we've passed is to support the Belfast Good Friday arrangements, to support the balance of those and symmetry of those arrangements. I was very pleased that it passed it got its advance into the House of Lords with no amendments, Mr. Speaker.
Chris Bidblunt. Mr. Speaker, in recalling the situation the Prime Minister inherited in July 2019 of a Parliament with a majority determined to frustrate the result of the 2016 referendum, led by a Speaker who was just slightly partial.
Okay, that's a filler question.
The party have had more Prime Ministers than we've had referendums. May I remind the PM of the Smith Commission report? It states it is agreed by all parties that nothing in this report prevents Scotland becoming an independent country. Therefore, does the Prime Minister believe in a democracy, and will he respect the people of Scotland's right to self-determination?
Mr. Speaker, I think that the people of Scotland do not, frankly, want to be talking about constitutional issues when another referendum, when the issues before the country are the cost of living, the educational issues that we discussed, drugs, crime, Mr. Speaker. I think they're far more pressing.
Mark Francois.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Here he is, the greatest.
The Prime Minister spoke earlier about the atrocities carried out by the IRA. For decades, many men and women had the courage to put on the Queen's uniform and uphold law and order in Northern Ireland on Operation Banner. One of the Prime Minister's undoubted achievements is he brought in the Northern Ireland Legacy Bill so that those people who serve their country can finally sleep safely in their beds.
If anyone's accused of war crimes, they should be punished for it, regardless of how old they are. Like, the Northern Ireland Legacy Bill, it's just not... Come on, man. Like, especially when it's used to, it's going to be used to cover up war crimes in other countries as well. We already discussed how the SAS are accused of killing unarmed detainees. I mean, this is going to help whitewash all of it, isn't it?
Thank you for that, Prime Minister, if I may be so presumptuous, on their behalf. You kept your word to them.
Well, I'd like to thank my old friend for everything he did to campaign on that issue for so long. And I'm glad that this government was indeed able to fulfil its promise, not just to the veterans, but to their families as well. And I would like to...
That one's libelous. I'm going to have to hide that one.
Renew my thanks to the security services who do so much to keep us safe, but also to all those who put on the Queen's uniform.
Right, last question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Prime Minister, the OECD forecast the UK economy with zero growth in GDP for 2023. That would be the worst performance in the G7. Ireland...
And the worst performance out of the G20, Russia aside.
Switzerland, Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands, Iceland, Sweden, Austria, Belgium and Finland are all wealthier than the UK. Why should Scotland not be afforded the same opportunity to seek prosperity through being a sovereign, independent nation, standing as an equal amongst other equal nations?
What's this man's problem?
Mr. Speaker, the UK was the fastest in the G7 last year. Will return to the top of the table soon.
When is soon? 2024?
Because we came out of COVID fastest.
That's not true. I think the Scandinavian countries did. So it's just more lies. The only reason we were the fastest growing economy is because we fell the furthest.
5% growth in May, Mr. Speaker. And the people of Scotland, don't forget, the people of Scotland, like the people of the whole of the UK, are supported by the massive fiscal firepower of the UK Treasury. And that is a great advantage.
Sharon McCrawley.
Mr. Speaker, and can I place on record my thanks particularly to the firefighters of Cornwall, who were also extremely busy and courageous yesterday. Can I thank this Prime Minister for his support and enthusiasm for Cornwall and for the people of Cornwall over the last...
Filler question.
To support the Greater South West.
While the Prime Minister has been on the Randan at Chequers,
There's not a lot of Labour MPs asking questions. It's mainly the SNP and the Tories.
Scotland are suffering because of this Tory cost of living crisis, and we're paying a high price for his disastrous hard Brexit imposed against the wishes of Scottish voters. It's time to end this democracy denial, Prime Minister. Scotland can't afford to stay shackled to this crumbling union and Tory governments that we don't vote for.
I would make the point that the Scots are paying more for energy than they would have done if they were in an independent country.
Does the Prime Minister not accept that Scotland is a democracy? He has no right to overrule the votes of people in Scotland, and we will have the referendum that we voted for.
Mr. Speaker, this is the country that secured furlough, that delivered the vaccine across the whole of the UK, while the SNP gets on with overtaxing to the tune of £900 million, Mr. Speaker. That's what they're overtaxing in Scotland, and we had a referendum, Mr. Speaker, in 2014.
Yeah.
Martin Vickers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know that my right honourable friend is aware of how important the seafood processing industry is to the Grimsby-Cleethorpes area. However, there is one cloud on the horizon, and that is the recently imposed 35% tariff on white fish, which is causing industry leaders
Who's put this tariff on?
However, there is one cloud on the horizon, and that is the recently imposed 35% tariff on white fish, which is causing industry leaders considerable concern. And though
Who's put this tariff down? The British government, or?
Recognise that it's important to maintain sanctions against Russia. This is causing, as I say, great concern. Would my right honourable friend arrange meetings with me and my honourable friend from Grimsby with the appropriate ministers so we can discuss measures how to mitigate the impact on the industry?
Okay, not the worst question.
I'll make sure he gets a meeting as soon as possible with the relevant minister, but I think it is very important that we encourage our great fish and chips shops in Grimsby, Cleethorpes and elsewhere to make sure they're not just using Russian fish and chips.
John Little.
Be Russian fish, wouldn't it?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the Prime Minister limps off into the history books, his name up there...
Another SNP person, I think.
...in the pantheon of greats alongside the Duke of Portland and Spencer Perceval. Can he update us on his defenestration honours list? How many of his cronies will he ennoble? Can we expect him to surpass Harold Wilson with a lavender list of dodgy donors, obsequious courtiers and pinchers by nature?
Pinchers? Is that a Chris Pincher reference?
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that everybody who has served this government loyally and well deserves recognition of some kind. But as for the honours list, I'm afraid he'll have to contain his excitement.
All right, we'll leave it there. I've got like a load of stuff I need to go through. Sorry, I can hear a blender go off there. I've got a load of other stuff to get to, so we're going to end the stream here. This is Johnson's kind of last stream. I wonder if they're going to... we've got like 6 minutes until 1 o'clock. Are they clearing the lobby already?
Here and hasta la vista. It's a space to live and invest, which it is. It's the people that sent us here. And yes, the last few years have been the greatest privilege of my life. And it's true that I helped to get the biggest Tory majority for 40 years and a huge realignment in UK politics, Mr. Speaker. We've transformed our democracy and restored our national independence, as my right honourable friend says.
That's not true.
I've helped to get this country through a pandemic and helped save another country from barbarism. And frankly, that's enough to be going on with. Mission largely accomplished. For now, I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank all the wonderful staff of the House of Commons. I want to thank all my friends and colleagues. I want to thank my right honourable friend opposite, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank everybody.
I think he thanked Ian Blackford, but not Keir Starmer. That's interesting.
Here and hasta la vista, baby. Thank you.
Yeah, it was thingy George Bush, wasn't it? It was George Bush, mission accomplished. Gobia. Dams the brakes.
We now come to the statements. I'm looking for Mr. Malthouse. He's here.
Big Kit Malthouse. Yeah, that's it. Pretty much that's his. I think his final PMQs. I can't imagine he would. I can't imagine he'd go again. I don't think he can. I don't. I think that would destroy a lot of things if Johnson managed to stay as PM somehow. Apparently, some Tory members want him added to the ballot, so there'll be a 3-person ballot. I can't see that happening. Genuinely, the Tory leadership contests are designed to keep the current leader out effectively, which makes sense. I wish Labour kind of did the same in a sense, because it enables a clean slate rather than the current leader going back in. But then again, if we did that, if we had such a system. I'll sneeze again. We'd have had that Owen something, I can't remember his name, some joker who challenged Corbyn back in like 2017, I think, or 2018. Absolute clown that guy was. But yeah, I'm gonna end it there. Let me know what you think. If anyone's watched this back, it's Johnson's kind of last PMQs. I'm glad he's gone. So PMQs will be back, I think, in the autumn because they have a long recess. Because why not? They get paid over £80,000 a year and get more holidays than most other people in the country. But apparently that's okay because they work really hard, even though the country's completely screwed. But yeah, I'll catch you guys next when this happens again. I'll probably do a weekly live stream. I just need to figure out when, but I'll catch you guys next time.